what I would say, in order to avoid you turning into a dickhead for a couple of years and then finally integrating the shadow and then maybe getting closer to something like this, there's a way that you can actively subvert that process and as quick as possible and cleanly as possible get back in touch with a grounded soul and a grounded self-interest that allows you to be more authentic as a person and still come across as good. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But the problem that a lot of these guys have is that when I suggest this, they're like, are you saying that I must become greedy? Are you saying that I must just give in to my lower instincts? Do I just run around and just start masturbating all the time and watching porn all day? Do I go in and I just like rob a bank? Like, is that how things are going to work? And of course, that is not true at all, because this is, again, this problem where you're stuck in a very strong extremist false dichotomy, and then you see everything in the same sort of light. For example, when I say listen and be transparent with your instincts, assumes that you must then extremely surrender to your instincts and allow them to entirely lead you, which is not quite what I'm saying at all. I'm saying you must begin to build a relationship with your soul and understand these instincts and what they are and learn how to work with them. And that's a very difficult problem. But Nietzsche and Jung both constantly talk about this. This is Jung's individuation process, and this is Nietzsche's path towards the Ubermensch, the overman, as he specifically said. And there's very many amounts of quotes that specifically talk about this. Nietzsche himself would say that the overman is he who can bend all of the chaos of his passions towards one will and then become creative. That is how you create yourself in that type of regard. And this is exactly what he's talking about. You have all these instincts and passions inside of yourself. Can you grab them and shuttle them towards one clear direction, an honest direction that pushes you in the right way? But this is a struggle for people. People can't embrace these instincts. They can't go into them because they see this idea of surrendering to them fully and becoming a Pornhub loving grug who's running around eating burgers all day and listening to just consuming and just being a complete amoral degenerate in this type of regard. And that, of course, is not true, although I understand why people think this, because what you see is that our world is trapped in this false dichotomy. You see that Edward Bernays managed to levy and leverage the power of Sigmund Freud and the understanding of Sigmund Freud about the existence and the denial of these instincts, these deep drives underneath us. And he took this stuff and he leveraged it and used it in order to create, identity marketing, sexuality marketing, jealousy marketing, envy marketing. And he basically invented the premises of mass social engineering and modern capitalism that allowed people to drill into your brain that what you are is a identityless consumer that needs to take all these products in order to even exist, and you need to connect your libido and your lower urges and just give into them and surrender to them and impulse buy and all these type of things. Act on impulse, smoke the cigarette, it's sexual power, eat the food, eat the burger, you deserve it, hedonism, all these type of things. This is the sort of horrendous job that has been done to our mind, the creation of the century of the self, as they say, that is allowed, that often causes people to see this surrendering to the instincts in such a horrific and degenerate way. I understand it, but it is not the truth. Just because this is what the mainstream, the population, the most horrific villains in the world have done, doesn't mean that this is the correct way that things will work, nor the true way that things actually work when you do this well. Modern life is a buffet of lower instincts, but you notice that this actually creates the sort of same shadow problem in the modern society, where for this reason modern people are unbelievably soft and too comfortable and Puritan in some ways, and neurotically nice, and more ideological than you could ever imagine. They really lack souls in some sense. They really have, they spend their whole lives being a hedonist, consuming products, watching porn, and being degenerate in all sorts of ways. And then in order to compensate for all this embrace of the Antichrist and sin and the fallen world, in order to compensate for the buffet of the instincts that they've went through, you see the sort of standard normal person as wanting to grab on to some type of ideological Puritan thing, a simplistic, poor thinking, ideological Puritan desire. And so what happens is you have people like you just dangle in front of them any moral movement at all, anything, any new, what's the new kind of chick moral outrage that we're going to pick up now, and they will grab onto that because it will give them meaning, it will make them feel good, it will make them feel, it will bring back the kind of place that Christ used to hold inside their minds, that stop making them feel guilty for the hedonism and the indulgence in their instinct. They feel like there's something higher to them because they're fighting for the cause or fighting for this new meme that's probably just a consequence of more marketers who have more advanced this stuff and realized that social social engineering can go to the point of like social movements and all this type of stuff. And you're trapped in that sort of mincemeat grinder of all this type of stuff, the play on the instincts, the dangling of moral carrots and all this type of stuff. And you're like, no, I don't want to be a part of that at all. I don't want to go near the instincts because they create these type of problems. But this is ultimately, this culture war that people are often talking about is an inauthentic fight. It's an inauthentic way of seeing what we are, what our instincts are, what our drives truly are, when ultimately what you're trying to do is break out of that and develop an authentic relationship with yourself so that you have an authentic, coherent identity that's not based on false dichotomies, it's not based on being too nice, but based on the true life force and passion that operates within you, the will and the energy that operates within you, that God has programmed you in and nature has coddled throughout the span of time, so that you have a solid identity that cannot be pulled apart by all these filthy marketers and their silly little games in order to turn you into some type of brain dead last man that they can extract milk out of like you're some type of cow. This is why you notice this weird word that Nietzsche and Jung would say, which is become what you are. Oh, because stand on top of a mountain and look out across the fog and say, become what you are. And it's ultimate jargon, it's one of those annoying quotes that you hear all the time. But when you think about it, this is sort of what they're suggesting. What you are is this set of instinctive powers, these animating powers inside of you, and they will make you what you are. If you connect with them and allow them to lead you and develop a coherent relationship with this, they will lead you towards the ideal version of yourself. As Nietzsche says, you bend the chaos of the passions towards one direction. You tame the passions towards one direction. Instead of surrendering them, you tame them, and they will lead you towards what you are. And it takes honesty and courage to do this. It's a difficult problem to get this right. It's very, very hard to be transparent with your instincts, and it's very difficult to discipline your instincts, overcome them, and point them in a sophisticated way towards something. Because what you're sort of doing, what you sort of are, is that you've got all these, like, it's like a load of fires and maybe laser beams shooting up in the air, and it's chaotic. You've got your sexual desire pushing you one way, and your desire to be liked by people, and your desire to be seen as a high status person, and your greed, and all these things. They're all pointing in different directions. And what you as the man on the path towards the Ubermensch, you as the person trying to work this stuff, is you grab all these laser beams and you try bend them all together so that they all unify into one laser beam and go in one direction. That's really what he's talking about. And this is the mastery and working of the instincts. But of course, Edward Bernays and his clique, what they want you to do is, oh no, point that laser beam there. Like they want to control the laser beams. They want to shine. They want to extract as much value out of those laser beams as they can. And you must build a coherent, true soul, or else you'll just be a NPC, a noganist walking around in this modern world of super noganist magicians who will be able to suckle all your power out of you and turn you into nothing. A great example of this, for example, from women, is the problem of the neurotic modern woman. She struggles to relate with her body, and she's assaulted by, like, women are the most marketed to people in the modern world, and they're just assaulted by all of these ad campaigns and all this type of stuff that are pulling at their instincts and pulling at their identity in all sorts of different ways. Edward Bernays, for example, exploited in a genius way women's desire for liberation through the feminist movement by, getting a load of patriarchs, like a small group of men who sell cigarettes, and then he got them to make a marketing campaign that showed cigarettes as representing women's freedom. And of course, this gave the cigarette companies access to a huge, an entire half of the market they didn't have. And so these guys made millions and millions and millions, while women thought they were getting free, because women were getting mind fucked by the likes of Bernays, who've been using psychology on them and all these type of things. And of course, what has happened is that these guys see women as these cash cows that they can just exploit and play with their identity and their emotions. And so the modern woman shows up and she completely misunderstands her body. She's being sold all sorts of things like pills and cigarettes and identities and all this type of stuff. Like, it's assaulting her from all type of ways to try grab her at her identity. And she lives this sort of hollow shell of a life. She has no soul. She hates herself. She's in terrible states of depression, and she's struggling in all sorts of ways because of what has been done to her by all these forces. And in order for her to overcome this, she needs to, exactly like these guys, needs to reclaim her soul and reconnect with what she is, and reconnect with what her physiology and her body is, and reconnect with what her instincts is, and become an embodied person and reanimate herself in order to push herself forward.